What is going on, Nuggets Nation, NBA fans? I'm Tom Leuthner. Welcome back into Nuggets Today. Today we have an interesting episode. So we have an episode fully based off of one comment, and that is a comment by Ashish Singh, which is just a bunch of hyphens, and a 42 is his name. But he brought up a few trade ideas, which I actually covered. That this whole episode is basically an episode based off trading Michael Porter Jr.'s contract in multiple kind of deals. And the first move that he wanted me to talk about was a move with the Charlotte Hornets, and that is attempting to move for LaMelo. Now, that deal would probably include Jamal and MPJ in order to make it work, and I know that that's a lot, but I mean, it is LaMelo Ball. Now, is this the most realistic trade? Not really, but he wanted me to explore it, so I'm listening to the community, and I'm exploring it. Contractually, if Denver wanted to move for LaMelo and move MPJ and Murray, it would most likely look something like Murray, MPJ, and the 31 first for Grant Williams, Josh Green, Nurkic, and LaMelo. Denver would need to take on some of their bigger contract players, like a guy like Nurkic, who I believe is on a 3-year deal, a guy like Josh Green, a guy like Grant Williams. So it's a little bit tougher because I don't know if Denver would. I think that it solves all majority of the problems. I think it solves majority of the problems, of course, because you get your backup big in Nurkic, who's not amazing, but he's not terrible, and he's with Denver, and Denver drafted him, so he knows the system a little bit. You're able to bring in Josh Green, who I think is a good shooting guard, small forward off the bench, realistically. And Grant Williams is also a good role player. I mean, he was good for the Celtics, but since then we've sort of seen a decline in his game. Like I said, though, this is probably a little unrealistic just because I don't think they're going to want to move on from LaMelo, especially because LaMelo is probably better than MPJ and Jamal. And then you're giving up 3 other players with him. Maybe they do that to move those contracts off the books and take on MPJ and Jamal's, but I highly doubt it, especially because eventually they're going to need to re-sign Mark Williams if they're not going to trade him. This next trade I want to talk about, though, is a couple trades, actually, with the Pelicans. And these are the two probably most unrealistic trades to start because he asked me to see if Denver could go all in, even though it's not as realistic, and try to maybe get LaMelo or Zion. So this Zion trade would probably not be possible. And honestly, though, I'm looking at the trade, and I think that if you're offering this trade, it's not a trade that's going to be accepted, but if you want to just get Zion off the team and you want to rebuild and you want to get some players in return and people that are good, the trade would look something like MPJ, Peyton Watson, Hunter Tyson, and a 31 first. And you get Zion and Elfrid Payton back. I don't think it's a terrible trade. Again, if I am the Pelicans GM, I'm not going to do it just because, I mean, unless I want to dump Zion because he's always hurt and he can't stay healthy, and I get to get a guy like MPJ in return and maybe the upside of what Peyton Watson brings to the table. But I'm also not really intrigued by it unless I'm getting Jamal Murray, which is another trade that Denver can do with the Pelicans. And if you want to dump both their contracts, the most realistic way to do this trade would be MPJ, Jamal Murray, the 31 first, and Julian Strawther for Zion and CJ McCollum. Now, they get CJ McCollum's contracts off the books. He's in his 30s, or he's going to be in his 30s. He's making way too much money. I've covered him as a potential trade piece for Denver a while ago. If Denver can trade MPJ for him as a backup guard or even a starting guard and throw Murray at the 2, I think it could work. And I am very hesitant to trade Strawther because I think that he has the most upside on the bench. I think it's between him and Watson. Watson can't really finish at the rim that we've seen. But if he's consistent, I think he's the best piece that Denver has off the bench right now when it comes to in-house guys. But I also don't mind that trade. Again, you get to get MPJ and Murray's contracts off. You get Zion, but you got to just pray that Zion stays healthy and plays more than 30 games a season. Because when he does, he is that guy. Now, again, do I think those trades are super realistic? No, not at all. But I was asked to cover them, so I listened. And I spent some hours writing up these trades, making them. Again, I go in Fanspo, I make sure the contracts work, I make sure the picks work. So I sat there for a little while, and I made those trades. But these trades now are a little more realistic to me. These are some bench trades, and the first one is with the Utah Jazz. So he had brought up a few topics or a few teams that we should look at. Maybe the Nets, maybe the Jazz, maybe the Hornets. I covered the Hornets, what a trade for MPJ would look like. But the Jazz, Now, if you want to look at dumping Jamal or MPJ and Zeke Najee's contracts, the only way I'm really doing that and trading MPJ is if the haul back is a little bit crazy, but again, contractually this works. It would be MPJ Najee, the 31 first, and in return from the Jazz, you get John Collins, Jordan Clarkson, Svi Mikhailuk, and Johnny Juzang. Now, again, it might be unrealistic, but if I'm trading MPJ, I sort of need a haul in return if you're not going to get a bunch of picks, because Desmond Bane, who I think shot worse than MPJ actually from the field and is the same age, just got 4 unprotected first round picks for him. So if I'm Denver and I want to continue contending, I would ask for Collins, Clarkson, Svi, and Johnny Juzang. Now, you look at the trade in general, you have Svi Mikhailuk, who is a 36% three-point shooter. Denver could easily use him around 6 to 8 minutes per game. You look at Johnny Juzang, a guy who's 24 years old. Loved him at UCLA, actually, watched him in the tournament. He last season played 64 games rather. Shot around 38% from 3, 43% from the field, 9 points per game, 3 rebounds. He's a 6'7" shooting guard. Denver can't use him? Of course they can. I mean, I would, if I'm Denver, I'm trying to trade Zeke Najee and maybe like Hunter Tyson for him. But again, Clarkson and Collins, we already know how they are as players. But I really do think that is a trade that if Denver is able to send it out and make it work, because that's what the contracts would have to do, then go ahead and do so. Do I think it's going to happen? Obviously not, because I don't think that Denver wants to split the core up. But like I said, I was asked to cover it, so I'm covering it. I also think that if Denver wanted to make a move like that, they would need more draft capital, which they don't have right now, obviously. The last trade is another trade that could be realistic. It's with the Orlando Magic. And Denver would be sending MPJ, Najee, Jalen Pickett, 31 first. And in return, if they want to do this for just bench players, it would be Mo Wagner if his option is picked up, Anthony Black if his option's picked up, Caleb Houston if his option is picked up, and then Wendell Carter and Goga. Now, of course, I don't see that happening, because why would Orlando give up all 3 of their center power forwards? I know that they have Paolo obviously starting, but those guys are all either their backups or starters. So I don't think it's as realistic as maybe the Jazz trade, but if you're trying to move a guy like MPJ and get bench pieces, you can't really do that unless all of those guys are included, because MPJ makes way too much money, and so does Zeke Naji, making $8 million a year. I mean, the other trade for Denver that it's honestly, if you look at it, it is a better looking trade, but I don't think it makes sense for Denver. So the trade would be, again, it would be Zeke Naji, Jalen Pickett, the 31 first, MPJ, and in return you're getting Jonathan Isaac, Mo Wagner, Goga, and Anthony Black. Now that I feel like is more realistic for Orlando, but at the same time, why would Denver take on 3 or 4, I guess technically 3 bigs, even though you need one backup, the depth wouldn't hurt, but you're also losing your sharpshooter in MPJ, and I don't think you're getting that back in return. So at that point, like I said, the package that you're getting in return isn't as good. If I'm Denver and I'm looking at any of these trades, I'm looking at the Jazz trade before anything, because you're getting 4 players who can actually help your team. Not that the guys in the Magic can't. I just don't think it's a realistic trade. But if we wanted to make anything work with contracts, that's what it would have to look like. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. Make sure you leave some comments so I can get to your guys' opinions, your guys' ideas, and that's all I got for you guys today. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe